And we're back. Where was I? My husband came home. That's all there was to it. But we had to, have lunch and stuff. So I'm trying now to get back into the zone where we were earlier. I said this person in the pit is part of me. It's actually, that was such a strange sensation. And you can't normally in the world, in your life, that's not something that happens, because everything around you, human or otherwise, is different from you. It's a different identity. And this person, this expression, or this woman, or whoever you want to see, this figure, the feeling, there was a very strong, overpowering, strong feeling of being the same. She is me and I am her. And I'd never felt anything like that before. I've never felt it since, except in this same context. So I came out of this experience, out of this video viewing session, rather dizzy and confused. Like, what just happened? I have no idea what just happened. So I started reading about soul retrieval and what the video was officially about, and I've assumed then, and I still do actually, that it was an actual, that's what happened. There was actually a part of myself, the integral self that I was supposed to have been all my life. A part of that, for the first 45 years of this physical life, has been stuck in that hole in the ground, wherever that was, and why, and I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm still sort of, well, I'm not skeptic about this interpretation, but I have like a, I don't have any real doubts, but I can't confirm it, can I? I can't tell. It may just as well have been a very intense experience of a deeply buried part of myself, and I've just made a story out of it as I was going through this process at the time. That's possible. I can't tell. Maybe there isn't really a difference. I don't know. Well, there would be, insofar there would be a difference that this other part of me existed, had a life in, I suppose, Europe, but I'm not sure, was persecuted and thrown into that pit to die there by herself. All those things sort of feel true now, that 5 years later, 6 years later, actually, more than 6 years later. However, now comes the interesting bit. What do you do with this kind of thing, with this experience? I could tell every time I was thinking back to it, I was remembering it, I was writing about it in my diary, I was trying to figure out what to do with this experience, and there was all this hell around me with all the economic problems we were having, all the moving house, arguing with people. Oh dear. It was really hard for me to figure out what I was supposed to be doing with any of this. So it took me a while. It took me actually 3 years, 3 whole years. In 2015, at some point, I was getting desperate. I could, each time I thought of the experience, I remembered it, I could get back to that place, get back to that woman. I could feel that there was some sense of reality coming to me, but it was so thin and so almost primitive or faint. And I knew that it was the way to go, but I didn't know what else to do. At some point, I think it was in September 2015, I had like a guru at that time, and She's deceased. She's a spiritual leader who used to work in India. If you want information about her, I can tell you, but at the moment it's not really necessary to go into that. But she's a very, very strong and very positive force. Like, think of her maybe as an archangel or an ascended master. I think you could really see her as an ascended master, absolutely. And I asked her, because I'd worked with her before and I knew her and trusted her implicitly, please, please, please help me. It was the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, it was dark. I felt like, I cannot do this. I cannot go any further. I am not getting anywhere. It's been 3 years since the actual encounter with the other woman. And nothing's happening, and this isn't right. We have to be one person. She is me, I am her. We're supposed to be one person. Please, can you make this happen? Just, do something about this to help us. Help me. And instantly, like, it felt like a zipper closing. Zit, like that. The problem was solved. So it was really good that I had someone that I could ask, wasn't it? The next day was different. And I was so helpless and so completely confused as to what I was really supposed to be doing, and I could tell that there was all sorts of what I now see as emotional life coming to me. And I could sort of identify that it was that. And it felt so much richer and so much more. I felt so much more alive than I had ever felt before. And so that was 2015. So I was born in 1966. So that's nearly 50 years. 50 years that I spent walking around the planet, not like a zombie. I mean, I was alert, I was awake most of the time that I was interacting with people. But I was constantly in survival mode. And of course, I haven't had a really easy life. And I had a pretty complicated and conflicted childhood. And there's been all sorts of stuff going on. So I had to find a way to put myself back together after that. After the actual healing moment, that's what I call it, where the two parts of my person became one, I had to figure out how to live and how to be everything that I can be, really. Emotionally, mentally, physically, in also every way you can think of. And that's been quite a ride. And I've used whatever I can find. There's all sorts of ways of therapy out there that you can use, mindfulness and similar. Most of what I do to get my parts aligned so that I can process things easily has to do with mindfulness, being close to myself, being able to hold myself. It's no more than this, put one hand on top of the other and let them feel each other. They're you are those, these are, and they exchange information. I suppose that's what you could say. Who cares? It's not praying. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's the best way of praying there is. I don't know. I have to drag myself back from everything that I have been involved in, including the last night's episode with my friends, rowdy and noisy and youting and checking and whatever they are doing, making no sense at all. They're very funny, very friendly people, but well, whatever. So I get scared by noise because that's something that happened because my parents went through a loud and nasty divorce when I was a kid, when I was 4 or 5 years old, and they were shouting a lot. So whenever somebody shouts, I go nuts. And then after that, I have to now find a way to get my energy to come back to me. There's the kid inside me that's run away out the street and doesn't want to be found again. So each time, it's about that. Each time. So there's the aftercare to the soul retrieval experience is a lot of work. But then again, each time I manage to do something like that, I get huge payback. I get huge results and huge love and joy from being involved in anything, really. I can walk in the street and just be amazed at the glory of life itself. Trees and dogs and kids. I get along with kids now. Little kids. I didn't used to. Of course not. Kids are all about emotion and about being your simplest version of yourself and not having to explain anything. I was always about explaining stuff. So now, at this time, the explaining and the content are actually coming together. And on this note, I will leave you and see whether I can stick those 2 videos, this one, the last one, end to end, so that you can watch it properly. Thank you. Bye.